My name's Tom Davies. I'm the president here at Sattui Winery, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our 2025 virtual barrel tasting party. Very excited to have everyone on. We sent out close to 200 packs, so potentially 400 people will eventually be joining us. We have folks from 34 different states this evening, so that's pretty cool. I've just been tasting some of these wines here. You guys don't cheat, but I can cheat and try a few. We got some really nice wines. So please don't taste any wines yet because we're going to do this together. But if you want to sip a few just to kind of get going, please do. And so just make sure everyone has their glasses and on their mats and you're ready to go. And so I'd like to make a few introductions first. You're in for a real treat today. We have our great winemaking team. They're all here. I'd first like to introduce Painter, our director of winemaking. Brooks, good to see you.
Hello, everyone.
Brooks is now in his 21st year here at Sattui Winery, so that's something very cool. Another winemaker, Pete Velleno. Pete is entering his 17th year here. This will be his 17th finish. Pete, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, Tom.
And then Jason Moravec, celebrating his 10th anniversary at Sattui, number 10. And I'm sure all of you have looked at our spring newsletter, but if you haven't, please do. Jason's got a great spread in there and a little Q&A. Get to learn a little bit more about him and his passion of winemaking. And then, of course, it's my great pleasure to introduce new to our panel, Audrie Walsh. Audrie, welcome to our virtual tasting. She's in her big second year here at Sattui. But if you add everybody up, just here of the winemakers, we have 50 years of winemaking here at Sattui. And if you add in my tenure, we're approaching 100 years. So I don't think this is something you see a lot of at other wineries. And I think it's kind of our X factor. It's really what I think is the cream and on the top of the cake here that makes our wine so great. So during the tasting, probably everyone knows we have this chat function. So please, anytime you have a question as we sip and taste these and smell them, please just mention it on chat. We'll do our best to answer that. And then we have some great videos that we're going to be showing you tonight. So wherever you are across the country, we're going to bring you out into the vineyard, talk to the people that grow our grapes. And of course, you're talking to the people that make our wines. And then the format that we have tonight is very similar to the way we taste our wines here. If you're visiting the winery, sometimes you see us sitting in the tower tasting room, and we have 18 glasses in front of us. It's a great way to compare and contrast wines because we have them all side by side. We really should be doing this blind tonight. That way you could, really be forced to try to guess what these wines are. And so I know we're all anxious to begin this tasting, but I think it's important that we talk a little bit about the 2024 vintage. And I'd like our director of winemaking, Brooks, to maybe chime in on that. So what can you tell us about this vintage, Brooks?
Well, it's kind of a perfect dream for many winemakers. Picture perfect season. We had ample rainfall. In fact, it was a wet year. We typically in the middle of the valley will get 20 to 25 inches of rainfall. We were close to 30. So the soil profile was filled with water by the time the grapevines started budding out, and so spring growth was excellent. The long shoot growth, the number of clusters were large, and the berries and the clusters were also large. So it was a very good harvest in terms of the potential tonnage that we were getting, the yields per acre. And then as far as summer, we had a warm spell beginning in June, pardon me, July, and was quite warm. And then August, September really cooled off, which is ideal for the grapes. It gives them a little bit of a rest as they're developing on the vine. And then to finish September and October were quite warm, which is always one of the bonuses that we get here in Napa Valley to really bring the harvest in. So I think it was somewhat of a stress-free season for us. The wines are showing so well, and they've got great character and lots of ample flavor and moderate tannins.
Sounds great. Audrey, you have a great palate. What are you tasting in some of these wines, or what do you look for in a really young wine? Because these are very.
Yeah, I mean, these wines taste pretty different than what they're going to taste like once they're in the bottle. I like to say that young wines have a lot of baby fat. They're very plush. They have a lot of those primary red fruits. They might even seem a little awkward right now, compared to how they'll be when they come to bottling and after aging in oak. So what I'm looking for is there's a lot of fruit intensity. So it's going to taste like there's a lot of fruit weight there. Like you just put a bunch of that fruit in your mouth and it's very juicy. That's a sign of a really nice wine. And here we're looking that there's good structure. So by that, we mean there's a lot of tannins. So that kind of grippy feeling that you get is going to match that fruit weight. So if you have a lot of tannin, you want a lot of fruit weight. And generally speaking, when there's a lot of fruit weight, you have a really nice wine. So I'm looking for that. And then also that acid needs to be balanced. So when we're talking about balance and you have a lot of tannin and a lot of fruit, that you also have the acid to match all of that. And once those are all married together, you have a really beautiful wine that's meant for aging.
Yeah, really well said. Now, I know when we do these tastings at the winery, we're usually spitting because, we sit down and taste, maybe 30, 50 wines. Do you recommend that folks spit tonight or enjoy these wines?
I mean, if I were you, I wouldn't be spitting. If I'm at home enjoying wines, I mean, that's why we make them is so that we can enjoy them and swallow them. And you're really getting, the full taste when you do that. There's a lot of retronasal stuff that goes on when you do swallow a wine. But I'm going to be spitting just because A, I'm at work and B, if I really want to evaluate a wine and I want to focus on it and I want to be able to, jot down my notes here and there, I want to have a clear mind for each one. So that's why we do it. It's not really because it's a faux pas to swallow. It's just because we're trying to focus. So if you want to spit, that's great too. But if I were you and I was at home, I wouldn't be. So.
Thank you. Hey, I forgot to mention something. These futures are very limited, and I know that you all received the collateral in the packet. And so what we've done, we had a really successful barrel tasting party here, and I think it was on February 1st. But we set aside some cases just for this virtual tasting because many of these wines will be sold out. And if you're looking at the different flights, you'll notice, especially on this first flight, their allocations are down to less than a pallet, 46, 45. So, please know these wines are in short supply, but we're holding on to these. So you have a week or so if you're interested in purchasing them, you have time to purchase these. Of course, things never go as you have planned, and I have a surprise. Actually, it's coming up right now. There's someone that maybe most of you know, and I'm just going to scoot over, and then I'm going to scoot this way, and we have a special guest here. And here, if you want to just chime in. So I'm sure most of you know Janet Summers. Janet, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Hi.
Thanks. She just ran from upstairs. But for those that are big fans or big members here at the winery, you come down and Janet's always so gracious with her time and her enthusiasm for wines. And I look at all these people saying hi to you on the chat. I'd like to, Janet, maybe you can talk a little bit. You sample a lot of our futures for our fans.
Yeah.
What's your success? I mean, why do people enjoy tasting the futures, and why should they buy them?
Well, a lot of the people who buy futures have been buying them for years and years. They know exactly what they want already, and they know that they're going to get the best deal that they can possibly get on the wines that they already love. So that's one category of future buyer. There are also people who've never bought futures before who really like the experience of participating in the evolution of the wine. They like to see it, and it's fun for them. They love to go to the barrel. They think it's a great adventure. So that's another category of futures buyer. Why do you want to do it? Because you get a good deal. You don't have to pay everything all at once. You have the option of paying half when you buy the future and the other half when it's ready, which of course varies depending on the varietal. You get full credit for your purchase. So if you're trying to upgrade your membership, it's a good way to upgrade to gold without spending all the money at once. If you're just trying to renew your membership, you can renew it without spending, the whole amount. You can spend half and half. What else? It's just fun.
Yeah.
People love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it, that, you're purchasing wine and that we're going to be making for you, aging for you. And for those of you that can come back and visit us, you get to taste your wine out of your barrel. Right. And this is, as winemakers, this is what we do all the time, that we get to taste these wines and just when they're babies, and then eventually they grow into be these amazing wines 10 and 20 years down the road. So, and we allocate about 10% of our production each year just to futures, and so we cap it at that. I know in the past we've overdone that, and then we have no wine to sell because we've sold it all as futures. And please know, this is just a snapshot of what we have of our future wines. At the barrel tasting party this year, we had 27 wines. And so what we did for the virtual tasting, we picked out what we thought were some of the very best. At least we wanted to cover the cabs and a couple of our really famous Zinfandels and a real treat for you, the Paradiso. But if you have time to make it here to the winery, you got about 20 more barrels that you can sample. Well, anyway, thank you so much, Jennifer, for jumping in. And
I literally did jump.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. All right. Well,
okay. Well, Tom, we're talking a lot here. Do you mind if we start tasting some wines? I think we have some eager tasters here. What do you think about that?
I think it's a really good idea. I'm ready to start tasting some wine.
All right, let's do that. Well, I'm going to kick things off with our first wine here. So this is, again, we're on the first flight. The first wine here is going to be the 2024 Black Sears Hell Mountain Zinfandel. So go ahead and let's pick that one up. Let's give it a look and smell as we describe it to you guys here. So this is a really special wine for me. I really enjoy working with this vineyard. It's been a vineyard that's been a part of Sattui for a long time. And one thing about having a consistent grower that we're always getting fruit from is that we build a really great connection with them. It's almost as if before we can tell them to do something, they're already doing it. And so that is definitely the case with this wine right here. So this is the Black Sears. The family is good friends of ours. This vineyard is very special. It's very high elevation. Howell Mountain is one of the highest elevation appellations in Napa Valley. It comes from this really great red volcanic soil. But we actually prepared a little video here for you to kind of showcase the land, and Ashley Sears is going to be telling us a little bit more about it.
This Zinfandel parcel that was planted in 1975 by a couple from San Francisco. When my parents purchased it in 1980, it was about 5 years old. The well went dry, no fencing, deer were eating everything, the rabbits were eating everything, and they called it the hard luck vineyard. Just wasn't turning out to be what that couple had hoped. In 1984 was when Sattui made a Zinfandel that won a very prestigious award in Europe. And that was one of the first beginnings of our relationship through wine with this vineyard. A little bit about the vineyards. It was planted in 1975. And it was actually planted by our neighbor who is at the very end of the road, Bob March. And the clone is a Hain clone, which is a heritage vineyard, Zinfandel in St. Helena.
The Hain Vineyard is a property down in St. Helena that was originally planted prior to the turn of the century, the late 1800s. And at the time, Napa Valley was known as much for prunes and walnuts as it was for grapes. But there were some people who really wanted to make some wonderful wines. And the Hain clone on the Hain property has unique characteristics in terms of its cluster size and what we call morphology. It tends to be very large. The berries are a little bit larger than you might find in some Zinfandels. It's very juicy, and it has this unique black pepper characteristic to the wine. It's head trained. The vines are spaced quite far apart, and no irrigation. The majority of the vineyard is dry farmed, which again adds to unique characteristics in the wine. Howell Mountain is quite a unique location, being well above the valley floor and mostly forested. There's huge fir trees, oak trees, madrones, and so you can see really quickly where the fertile soils are. And the optimum soil conditions for grapevines in Howell Mountain are a couple of the soil series we refer to as Aiken or Boomer, and what they have in common are a lot of volcanic origin. So they're often red colored, they have a lot of iron, and they all have a lot of nutrients. Over the last several decades, it's unfortunate, most of the old vine Zinfandel in Napa Valley has been removed and replanted to Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is the highest and best return for most growers. And if you're growing Cabernet and you can sell it for $75 to $100 a bottle versus Zinfandel for $35 to $45, obviously you're much better off with Cabernet. Unfortunately, that means that these old heritage Zinfandels that are so wonderful and have so much to offer, many of them have been replaced. So this particular vineyard is super rare right now. It's a real treat to be working with a vineyard like Black Sears and having the opportunity to make just a fabulous wine from some older vines. This has always been a favorite of ours at Sattui. And so, we're approaching, 40 years of harvest from this vineyard, and it's one of our favorite Zinfandels.
For us to be able to continue that stewardship, really the wine and the grapes allow for us to do that and allow for us to raise our family here. I think it's my hope that for us and for Napa, that we can use that privilege of farming and winemaking in order to preserve what we love about Napa Valley.
Yeah, that was so amazing to be able to see where the fruit comes from and taste the wine at the same time.
Jason, I just got to add quickly, we the first contracts we had is with Ashley's father, Jerry Sears. And, the Valley was a different time back, 40 some years ago. And we never had a written contract. Jerry just say, yeah, I got 5 tons, I got 10 tons. You want to buy it? Here's the price. And we shook on it. And that was the deal. And we always knew that, 30 days after harvest, we had to pay up, but it just tells you, it's this heritage, not just a heritage vineyard, but just an old, it's what the Valley was like so many years ago. And it's, I remember it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very well said. I mean, it's just a part of our history here at Sattui, and it's amazing to be able to continue that. But I mean, tasting it, tells us a lot. Audrie, would you be able to kind of tell us a little bit about what you're picking up out of this wine?
Yeah, sure. So, first thing when I'm tasting these wines, I'm looking at the color, and this has a really nice ruby red color. But aromatically, it's extremely complex, and that's amazing from a young wine. Some of those complex notes. Usually it takes a little time during aging for those to come out, but we can already get that here. I mean, we're getting a lot of fresh plum. I'm getting a little rhubarb, some like potpourri spice. And then when I taste it, I'm getting raspberry, cranberry. Yeah, like different black fruits. So, you know, those things are only going to get more nuanced as time goes on. So you can also feel how fine the tannin is. And with some barrel aging, that's going to round out even more. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I think it's already tasting pretty good for being so young. And yeah, spot on those tasting notes. I agree. Pete, in order to get all these amazing flavors, what are we doing in the cellar to help promote such a great wine like this?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So the Sattui Zinfandel program is one of the best aspects of red winemaking at Sattui. Some years, including this year, we're bottling as many as 12 different Zinfandels, and that's challenging. And it's also this great opportunity to explore what different sites can offer and how versatile this grape can be. So the core of our winemaking for our Zinfandel program is to make sure that we are we don't want them to all taste the same, right? The goal is to let the vineyard express itself through the wine, and we do that by being very careful with the oak that we're using. We're usually at about 1/3 new oak on a Zinfandel, whereas Cabernets are 50% to 100%. So we really want the Zinfandel to shine through. Important aspect is Zinfandel also, kind of like those enormous grapes that are around your head right now, is you have these clusters that might have red berries on them and pink berries. Zinfandel tends to get a bit dehydrated. We hope that it doesn't turn to raisins. But on the same cluster, you'll have very sweet, jammy flavors, super ripe, and also the pinker berries that tend to give you better acidity and some spiciness. And that's really the magic of Zinfandel, is how those things all kind of play together. And on the winemaking side, a cold soak is very important. So we put all the grapes, we wait a few days in the tank, those sweeter berries and less sweet berries all meld together, and we have a more consistent fermentation. But everything, the goal is always to allow the vineyard to speak and to make sure that we have good diversity, so that when we taste these wines, as we're doing right now, each really has its own place and tastes unique.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like your comment about spice character there. Brooks, you mentioned that this vineyard often has some character of like a black pepper, and sometimes that showcased more years than others. How has that happened with this vineyard?
Well, I think there's a number of factors that play a role in that particular component, and it is very dominant in some years, a little less so in others, depending on the seasonal changes. The photo in the video was a great example of that. There was one shot of a cluster with very, very dark grapes around the majority of the clusters. But then if you look into the middle of the cluster, you saw maybe one green berry, a couple of pink berries. And it's my belief that that differential ripening, and Pete just mentioned the spice that we get from those slightly underripe berries, and I think that plays a big role here. So the morphology of this particular clone, the Hain clone, which is a heritage clone, I think lends itself to this characteristic in the wine, and so you can take advantage of that as far as pairing with a particular dish. I happen to like tri-tip, especially heavily peppered tri-tip on the grill, or maybe a sautéed chicken breast with some root vegetables and some nice spice, in the vegetables as well. So you can take advantage of the characteristics of that peppery note in the wine and match it with your dish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a great pairing. When you do that, can you invite me over?
How about tomorrow night?
All right, sounds good. It's a date. So I think this wine has a lot going for it. I mean, it has such a unique vineyard site. I mean, it has a lot of history with the family growing up there. It has a lot of history with the winery. This is definitely one to make note. If you guys have a chance, on your spreadsheets over there. Put a little star by this, or maybe a happy face if you really like it to add to your order. I think it's a great one to add to your cellar. Or I see in the chat box that some folks are having to buy another house to be able to store this one, but it's definitely one to put on the order.
Well, if I could add one more comment, back in the easy days of Napa Valley in the 80s, with no contracts, handshakes, everyone just trusted each other to do the right thing and build these relationships. And recently we were asking Ashley, we were trying to remember what was the first vintage of Black Sears. And I asked Tom, he said, well, I think it was 83, maybe it was 85. And then it refreshed our memories, and we talked to Ashley. She said, well, we have no records really going back that far. We don't know, but I think it was 84. Yeah. So it was an easier time back then.
Yeah, well, it's as evidenced by there's no wine left in my glass, and this was a 4-ounce pour. This wine is just flat out delicious. Congratulations, great wine team.
Cheers.
Well, look, before we talk about the next wine, which is a wine that I think many of us here are big fans of, let me first say it's a miracle that we have Qualia Vineyard for one more year. We kept the bulldozers at bay, and as maybe some of you have heard, the vineyard was sold, but we tried like heck to buy it. And here's what happened. This vineyard is smack downtown in St. Helena. The vineyard is literally 2 football fields away from where Kara and I live, right on Spring Street in the middle of town. It's a little 3-acre vineyard. Some of the vines 70 to 100 years old. The city, I don't know why they did this, zoned it for housing, and not just regular housing, high density or medium density. On this 3 acres, they want to put 50 plus dwellings on this thing. And, and it was the family, it was passed down through the generations, and there's a lot of siblings involved. And so they were forced to put this on the market. But you can imagine the price just went sky high. They were asking $2 million a vineyard. So they wanted $6 million for this little 3-acre vineyard of yielding 1.2 tons an acre. And we got up there. I think we were close to 3, which is virtually $1 million an acre, and we couldn't do it. And so this developer has a hold of it, and the only reason we got it for one more year is that the developer is still trying to get the permits in the city to build the houses. Of course, you can imagine, and there's homes surrounding this vineyard, so you can imagine these homes have been next to this historic legacy vineyard for 100 years, and now they're going to be high density homes. So I think there's going to be some litigation involved, and why the city of St. Helena did this is beyond me. But the good news is that not only did we have it here for this vintage, but we have it also for 25. Mike was able to, Mike Qualia, even though he doesn't own it, he was able to wrangle the grapes away from the new owner, at least for one more year. And we can only hope that that the lawsuits prevail. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I just wanted to add that. But Brooks, I know this has always been one of your favorite wines. It's certainly one of mine. What do you think of this wine?
Well, I there's so many aspects of this vineyard in particular, and then of course the wine that comes from it that I'm in love with. First of all, it was planted in the 30s in the Depression, and no one had any extra money to do anything with at that time. But here they are, lo and behold, they're planting a vineyard in in St. Helena. And so, as was typical back in those days too, it's a field blend. So it's primarily Zinfandel, but there's Petit Syrah, there's Carignan, there's Alicante Bouschet, there's even some white grape varieties in there. And the reason for doing that each of the varieties plays a role in the character of the wine itself. So this probably has a little bit more Petit Syrah than some of our Zinfandels, which gives it its really intense, deep red, black, inky color. It gives it a little more depth, a little more structure. So it's probably a little bit compared to the Black Sears. It's got a little more tannin, a little more structure. It's always been one of my favorites because it's just a big blockbuster Zinfandel, and you could serve this with appetizers or a giant steak, and you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah, well, it's flat out delicious. Pete, why is this wine special to you?
Yeah, so this vineyard being inside St. Helena, there's so much connection for us here at Sattui with, it's not some vineyard that's in some faraway place or up in the mountains that you only get to see once a year. This is a vineyard that we have employees that drive past it every day, yourself included, and and it's just so it's very personal. And as mentioned, the legacy of the vineyard, there's this connection that winemakers can have with generation upon generation before us, making wines from the same place, from the same actual vines. It's really kind of heartwarming and charming for me as a winemaker to do that. And then we get to put it in a bottle and it'll be enjoyed for generations to come. It's just it really is special to work with a vineyard that is so close. For a wine like this, in my house, we love to have this with pizza on a Friday night. This is like on any given Friday, you could probably find us with an open bottle of Zinfandel at home. It's my wife's personal favorite variety. We have so many to choose from here. You'll never get tired of them. But anything that is kind of smoky and sweet tends to pair really well with any of our Zinfandels, especially the Qualia. Audrie, what do you think this particular vintage is showing us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting those like smoky characters, and it's Brooks talked about its color, which is really amazing. But the interesting thing is that I'm getting a lot of some of floral aromatics, so lavender. I'm getting a lot of black currant. That's probably the prevailing aroma that I get when I smell it. And then there's also some allspice and star anise. So it has a really kind of sweet profile to it, but it's complemented really nicely with those savory, smoky notes or like dried herb. And so I could see that going really well with pizza.
Well, Jason, I wanted to ask you, this is Old Vine Zinfandel, in fact, Ancient Vine Zinfandel, and we have kind of our own definition of Old Vine versus Ancient. So what makes a old or ancient vine so particular in its characterization and flavor profile, and why is Zinfandel the one that is typically left for so long in the vineyard?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brooks. The Qualia here is an ancient vine, and as many of you probably know, the way that we define that, there's no legal definition of old or ancient vine, but here at Sattui, for us to be able to put old vine on a Zinfandel, it needs to be at least 50 years old or older. But in order for it to be an ancient vine, now that's getting to the next level, it needs to be at least 75 years old or older. And that's incredibly old for these vineyards. I would say typical vineyards of other varieties often they get up to production years of like year 6 to year 20 or year 25. At about year 25, what starts happening there is the yields really start decreasing. And so normally, vineyards are looking at, okay, what's our farming cost versus how much we're getting for it. It's time to start tearing those out and putting in younger vines. The thing is with these Zinfandels, they really excel and the fruit gets exceptional. You have less fruit, this is true. So rather than getting like 4 tons per acre, you're getting closer to maybe 1.5 tons per acre. The yields do go down, but the vines are able to just give so much more energy to what fruit is left. And so that really intensifies the flavors that you're getting from this fruit, just making them so delicious. And they're hard and rare to come by, which is why we kind of taken it upon ourselves to kind of seek these out and make sure that we can keep them going as long as we possibly can. And I think this quality of vineyard is an excellent example of that.
Yeah, I know we're about ready to go on to our next wine, but just lastly, having an ancient vine vineyard like this is so special, but we've lost some really special old vine ancient vineyards. For those that remember the ancient vine Crow Ridge, the Gilson, the ancient vine from Duarte, which is now Holmes. I mean, I think we have to enjoy them when we can, because they're not here forever, and that's the reason we didn't submit the schoolhouse for this tasting, but we now have our own heritage old vine vineyard going on. It's about 75 years old, so you could say our schoolhouse is an ancient vine that's over in the Dry Creek, the delicious Zinfandel. But anyway, are we ready to start tasting a little Cabernet based wines? I'd like to introduce the Paradiso, but just a couple notes, and I know we have a great video that Al is going to show. But this is only the second time we've had this wine on a virtual tasting. It's always very limited. We have only a little bit left of the 2019. I think it's over a couple $100 a bottle now. And of course, we lost the 20 due to the fires. And so now we have the 21, but we're not going to be releasing that because this wine is so special. It has its own party that we have each year to release this wine. So we'll be releasing the 21 vintage a week from today at our Winemakers dinner. So before we go any further, let's watch the video and learn a little bit more about this amazing Bordeaux wine. Style wine. We wanted to have something that was really unique, and I wanted to give Brooks the ability to craft a wine that was different each year. And it wasn't putting him in a box that he had to blend to each particular year. So in 2007, we crafted our first proprietary blend. We now just needed a name. And there's a town I visited in 1990 in northern Italy, southern Switzerland, and it was right on Lake Lugano, and the name of the little village was called Paradiso, and I've always liked that name. So we had a name, and we had a wine, but we didn't have a label. So as we talked about, how could we do something that's really unique? Well, about this time, Fabio Sangioni was on his way to finishing up the frescoes at the castle. And here's this amazing Italian artist. And as we became friends, he showed me this wonderful artwork. And I've always had a love of modern art. And so I thought, what a great label for this wine, because we could come up with a different label each year that would somehow pair with the particular vintage.
I always painted when I was a kid. But it was kind of difficult for me to get into it's not business, into the field, because my father was a tough guy. So he was a teacher, and he has very strict ideas, about what you are supposed to do according to your abilities and blah, blah, blah. So I found myself totally on the street, okay? Until one day, my brother, which is a set designer, and he said, well, do you want to help me? And so I started, building sets for theater. So opera, ballet, operetta, commedia dell'arte, and I learned from the masters there. I met Dario through a decorator over 20 years ago. Then a few years later, I had to do something else, probably for Sattui. Tom loves art, and he always loved art. And between him and Pat, they had this idea to create a new thing for this particular wine that was coming out. It's a Bordeaux blend, Paradiso. And so I had some paintings. Since I also like to do most of the time abstracts, and I said, okay, let's see if we can do something with that. And that's how we came up with the idea, different painting for every vintage. And actually it's been successful.
The goal of this program is to create a world-class wine, emblematic of a Bordeaux classic red, but with the California signature. Really create something that's going to be age-worthy and really special.
Well, Brooks, this is, I believe, your 16th vintage of Paradiso that you've made. We would have had 17 if it not were for the wildfires. Please tell me your thoughts on this particular vintage of this Paradiso.
Well, I remember when we first discussed this and the concept of making a Bordeaux blend was very attractive to me, a little novel for Napa Valley, which was so centered on varietal wines and appellation wines. And so it really did free our hand to make something really unique and something that could be modified and changed every year, depending on the conditions, the growing conditions, and the character of the wine that we're given each year. In my mind, I was thinking it's going to be a left bank Bordeaux, in other words, Cabernet centered, and it still has been since its inception, typically around 55 to even 70% Cabernet Sauvignon, and then a big dollop of Merlot, which each of us are going to have a chance to talk about what these other varieties bring to it. But Cabernet is king in Napa Valley. And so that's why I said we've got to have a really strong base in Cabernet and then use all the other four Bordeaux varieties. I think there might have been 1 or 2 years which we only used 4 varieties, but now last several years at least it's all 5 varieties. And I know that everyone has an opinion on the winemaking team of what these varieties bring. And so I'm going to ask Audrie, first of all. I know you like Merlot and Malbec, and so what do you think those 2 varieties bring to this wine?
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is, I like music a lot, so I always try to tie things back to music because it's a little easier for me to understand. But if some of the other varietals have particular instruments, I think specifically Merlot would be like a rhythm guitar. It's filling out the middle. It's not necessarily the star of the show in a Bordeaux blend, but it's really bringing that weight. And I think Merlot has a lot of plum character. It brings some of that juiciness to it, but it's not giving a lot of tannin. So it's not really hard. It's more of a filling variety. And then Malbec, I would say, is probably more on maybe like the base or something like that. It's bringing some structure. It's a little lift. And it's not supposed to be overpowering the blend. It's supposed to be bringing some nuances in, like black currant, black pepper, a little bit of floral character, maybe some vibrancy to it. But again, it's not supposed to dominate. And I think that's one of the nice things with Bordeaux blends is that we're trying to make something that's seamless. And we have a lot of play and wiggle room with how much of everything we're putting in. But the end goal is to make something that's perfectly balanced and very complex.
You and I know Jason thinks it's the star of the show. So why don't you talk about Cabernet Franc? Jason loves Cabernet Franc, and so you're on the spotlight here.
Thanks, Brooks. And you are totally right. Cabernet Franc is by far the best variety ever. Some people they see Cab Franc and it creates a lot of emotion. Sometimes they're like really against it. Sometimes they're really for it. I'm definitely on the side of for it. In a Bordeaux blend, it really showcases a lot of what it has to offer. It has a lot of the same fruit varieties as like a Cabernet Sauvignon. So you're going to get a lot of that black black currant or blueberry flavors. But in the aroma, it's going to have a whole nother layer to it. It's going to have like this spicy character. So you can think of Cab Franc as the spice rack that you can use when you're making a Bordeaux blend. If you have a lot of fruit going on, but you want to have something more, make it a little more lively, a little more interesting, let's add in a little bit of Cab Franc, maybe 3% up to 5%. I think that's great. It has so much to give to this blend. And I think it's great, a variety all on its own. It's absolutely amazing bringing in that cardamom, or even it can bring in a little green note, which is fun. Some people like to shy away from green character in these Bordeaux blends, but I think it's something to celebrate. And I think Cab Franc is the way to do that.
Okay, thanks, Jason. And Peter is going to bring the last variety, Petit Verdot. What do you think that brings to the party, Pete?
All right, Petit Verdot. This is a variety that a really small amount can really go a long way. Most of our blends are going to be between 1% and 3%. Our Paradiso blends will be between 1% and 3%. I think this vintage is closer to 3% by the time we bought it. The Petit Verdot is it's the darkest in color of the Bordeaux varietals, and it really packs a punch. It's bringing color, it's bringing structure, and a set of aromatics that you really don't find in the other varietals. A lot of people describe it as perfumey. It's floral. It's a violet, maybe lilac in some years, and just but the flavors are black fruit flavors. You might be thinking, very blackberry, black plum, things that are very dark in nature. So it's a finishing touch. If you have a pasta dish to serve and you throw some herbs on right at the last second, or some shaved truffle on your favorite dish right, as it leaves the restaurant, something that is right at the end to kind of set it off and take something that is a really good blend to something that's exceptional.
Thanks, Pete. Tom, any other comments about our wonderful Paradiso?
My God, it's just another delicious wine. Thank you, Brooks. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of drank all my wine here on this last flight. But I think it's time we have a little quick intermission, but don't go anywhere. But I just want to make sure that everyone has poured the next flight. And if some of you haven't, then I will talk here for a few minutes, because I do have some exciting things to share. As everyone probably knows, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of making wines here in the Napa Valley. Hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, we have our spring newsletter just went out, and we have some great old photographs of some of the people that have worked here over the years, and some great stats. I mean, just surviving the wine business for 50 years, you have to know it's pretty amazing. That it's not an easy business. We're farmers. We produce wines and and everything else that we do here. And over the years, of course, we've had earthquakes, we've had wildfires. We survived the pandemic, and now we have this new temperance movement. What a bad idea is that? And you probably read about declining alcohol sales, and young people aren't drinking wine, and more cannabis or craft cocktails or whatever they're drinking. And now, of course, the tariffs and everything else is just seems to be something else that we have to deal with. But the one thing I think that we've learned for our 50 years is that you have to be resilient. And I think that's who we are here at V Sattui. And I look ahead and I see just so many exciting things. Karen and I celebrated our 43rd wedding anniversary last night, and we were out to dinner, and I had this wine from down in Campania and near Pompeii, and it was aged in amphora. And I was texting Brooks during dinner, you got to get some amphora. This wine is delicious. So again, I'm always looking forward that, I think we have some exciting things ahead of us. And so we're going to have some great celebrations this year for the 50th anniversary. Of course, we're going to have our big harvest ball, which is going to be our big party for the 50th anniversary. And then on the Friday night, we're going to have the really official open house of our new Mercado del Gusto, which is really our new marketplace and tasting room that's been under renovation now for almost a year. And I think Allie's going to show, she's showing some of our pictures here from our newsletter, but she's going to tee up. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of our remodel, which we're hoping to have open by the end of May, early June. We'll see, but we're very excited for this. It's a project that's been on the books now for probably 7 years, and we've been in earnest with production. So if we can run that video for the Mercado, which means Mercado del Gusto means market of tastes, or taste of the market. And so enjoy this little sneak peek.
Hi, my name's Tom Davies. Welcome to our new tasting room and marketplace. We're rebranding it as Mercado del Gusto, which means a taste of the market. This is a project I've been working on for probably the last 7 years. It took 5 years just to get it permitting through Napa County. We've been on the job for almost a year. We've been working virtually every single day to get this thing done. We have upwards of sometimes 25 people from all the different trades, but this is gonna be amazing. We're gonna have probably one of the most beautiful tasting rooms and marketplaces here in Northern California. You know, it was in need of a remodel. You know, this has been the same for 50 years. You're gonna love it. Let's go inside and see what this thing's all about. There's so many things I want to talk about, but first and foremost, we needed to get a little bit more room. Over the years, anyone that's been in here, you know that we've been very, very crowded. We only had 1,500 square feet for our deli, and yet we would see a couple thousand people during the day. So we were able to expand the building by about 2,500 square feet, and we gave a lot of that space to the deli. And one of the features that I'm really excited about is this cheese case behind me. This is a 25-foot long cheese case. And behind it, you'll see a refrigerated wall that will be full of big rounds of cheeses. This is where we'll store the cheeses before they're cut up. This is gonna be spectacular. We're gonna go over to the deli case. Let's do that now. And I wanna show you what we're doing over there. As you walk in the door, to the right will be the cheese counter. To the left is gonna be the deli, which is right behind me. These are all beautiful handmade Italian cases. The floor, this is 12-inch planks that were hand milled in Italy. We just installed probably about a month ago or so. There's a lot of little details. I want to just point up to the ceiling up here. So we wanted to add a little bit more natural light. So we have these beautiful panes of glass that really lights up the hand-hewn timbers that we have in here. So let's go down over here and look at the tasting room. This is our round bar. This really centers our whole tasting room. I think this is gonna be a really popular place to taste wine. This is all that Supile wood that was milled for us in Montana. And then above me, we have this great wine rack that'll all be filled with bottles. And then we have this cool back bar, which overlooks the vineyards. I don't think people are gonna wanna leave this place once they come in here, but let's go check out the back bar and see what you think. Well, this is our back bar, and as you can see, for the folks that are sitting at this bar, you'll be able to look out over the vineyards. And then too, you can see this really beautiful Carrera Blanca stone. So I think it's just a wonderful offset to that of the really dark woods. And then Fabio Sangioni, the designer of all the beautiful Paradiso labels, just did a new V62 logo for us here. I think we got a few more areas I want to show you. I got another surprise for you here in a second. Come with me. Well, surprise everyone. You're now getting the first glimpse inside. We have 2 of these private rooms. This is where we're going to store the very best older wines of Sattui. We're going to have racks in here to store all these great older vintage and rare wines. This room has its own AC system to keep the wines exactly at 55 degrees I'm really excited about this feature too, and I think you will be as well. So this is where we're going to have the folks doing all the prepping for the paninis and sandwiches and such, a lot of the prepared foods. We even have this little pass-through, so when you place your order for a panini or a meatball sandwich or something like that, they'll be able to prepare it back here. We just pass it right through. This is pretty special, and I know our team is going to be really excited to be able to work in a real prep area. So as you enter the main building here, this is going to be the first thing you're going to see. This is our grab and go case. So we'll have certainly some sandwiches and desserts and things that you can just grab. And then behind me, we're going to have our POS system. So we'll have checkouts on both my right and left side. And then we'll also have displays in the middle of the room along the sides here as well for all our grocery items. We designed it with a better flow. Before, it was designed as really a tasting room, but now I'm going to take you to something really special for you to see. So let's go. I know it's not appropriate for me to be in a ladies' restroom, but I just want to show you that we've added more restrooms. I know that has been a point of contention here for years. We've had just a shortage of restrooms. We did a vaulted ceiling out of the Carrera Blanca stone. We have a baby changing station, and again, I think it's going to be a great addition. Well, I didn't want to leave the guys out, so we also have a new men's room too. This is going to be great for staff, and it'll be great for all our guests. And another one of the great additions is part of our remodel. This is our outdoor tasting area. We'll have ivy and vines planted over the pergola. We're going to have gorgeous pavers that we've hand casted literally thousands of over the last couple years that we're going to be laying down on top of the concrete here. So you have this wonderful shaded area. It has great vistas of the vineyards, and excited to have this area for you as well. I hope you liked the little sneak peek. We can't wait to share this with you. So in a couple months, we'll have this open. You'll be the first to know. We're going to shout it from the rooftops. We hope you come see us. We're going to have all sorts of openings and special grand openings and parties throughout the summer into the fall. The Harvest Ball you don't want to miss, because we're going to have a special evening on Friday night just for Harvest Ball guests inside this room. And again, thank you so much for enjoying our wines and enabling us to build something like this, because without your help, this wouldn't have happened. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you again. This is absolutely would not have happened if it weren't for the success and for your patronage of enjoying our wines. And so we're just can't wait to get this thing open. We're really close. Well, look, we got four main of the main wines here of our Cabernets. We need to get right into it.
Yeah, Tom, let me introduce the Vittorios if I can, even though I do enjoy talking about Marcato, because, we've been having our lunches out of the trailer, and I was so excited to go in there and have lunch.
Really tired of the triple wine, let me tell you.
So our first wine here. So this is Vittorio's Vineyard Cabernet. This one feels like home to me, because I park in the vineyard every day. We're always walking through the vineyards. Even when we have to go back and forth to our back house, we go through the vineyards. So we're constantly seeing these vines grow throughout the year. Right now, they're just starting to have fruit set, and you're seeing the vines are starting to get their leaves are getting bigger. So it's always a little exciting and a little nerve-wracking, because it means that harvest is coming up close. But I think we have some footage so that you guys can see what we see every day out in the vineyard, and just kind of get an overview of it.
When Dario revived his family's winery here in the Napa Valley, and this is about 1976, the original purchase he made was for about 2.5 acres. It was an old walnut grove, and for about $15 a square foot, he built our original winery and deli and marketplace. And at that time, we didn't have any vineyards. We purchased all our fruit, and when I started the winery in the harvest of 1980, the vineyard just to the south of us was owned by a doctor from Marin County, but it was farmed by an old timer here in the valley. His name was Charlie Volpe. And I remember meeting him about 1980, and he'd come into the tasting room, of course, all full of dust. He'd been on the tractor. He was always complaining that the trash from the picnic grounds was going into his vineyard. I said, well, Charlie, I'll do the best we can, but how about a glass of wine? And so we became good friends. And eventually in 1985, we purchased, which is now Vittorio's Vineyard. And so now Vittorio's Vineyard is mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, but with a few other varieties, and we're very proud of that. So as you're driving up Highway 29, Vittorio's Vineyard is the first thing you see. We have close to about 1/3 of a mile of frontage right here on 29 for Vittorio's Vineyard, separated by a long driveway of olive trees. It's just a great position to have an estate vineyard when you have an event at the winery, or you're attending our harvest ball, or one of our many events. Our Vittorio's Vineyard lawn is actually right smack dab in the middle of the vineyard. It's just a sweet, sweet spot, and we're so very proud of the wines.
What makes this area special, it really was the origin of winemaking in Napa Valley. Most of the initial wineries and wine growing occurred here in the 1850s, 1860s, 70s. The soils here are really unique. In fact, one of the most unique spots in the entire world. There's over 21 soil types represented here. Over millennia, the oceans have entered the land, they've receded, the land's been uplifted. And as an example of that, I've got a couple of rocks that I picked up in this very vineyard. This one is one of my favorites. It doesn't look like much, but it's my belief that this comes from the age of the dinosaurs. It's over 60 million years old. And it just gives you an idea of the history, the geologic history of this area. This is chert, green chert, and it comes from marine organisms that filtered down to the bottom of the ocean. They were compressed over eons with soil and layers of dirt, and then uplifted because of this tectonic activity. And then of course there's obsidian. Our area is very rich in obsidian from what's referred to as a Sonoma volcanics about 5 million years ago. And it's all derived from alluvial soils that have come down the mountain behind us, the Mayacamas Range on the west and the Vaca Range on the east. So our farming practices have always followed the sustainable rules. We always try to use the least impactful chemicals, whether it's herbicides, fungicides, all of the typical farming materials that all growers use. But we made a commitment in 2009 to start farming organically. And we're certified by CCOF. It's a 3-year process to get certified, so you have to show what materials you've used for 3 consecutive years. So that was in 2012. So for the last 10 years, we've been farming organically here. We feel very proud of that achievement because organic farming does cost more, and we're committed to making that as a statement to our community, to protect the health of our employees, protect the health of our neighbors. We're willing to spend that extra money, but why do it? Does it make greater quality grapes? We believe that it does. It gives us a better understanding of soil and rejuvenate the biosphere here in our vineyard. We can see more birds, more insects, more lizards, more life across the board.
I love that shot of the birds in the vineyard. I've sat in the parking lot just watching them. It's amazing to see them in the vineyard, and you just know that we live in a really cool place when we have all these animals around. But I've been seeing here in the chat that there's some talk about what we could pair this with. I mean, it's really a wine that you can pair with a lot of different things. You can either go that steak route or like a braised beef. You could even make the braised beef with a wine reduction if you would even want to pour some of this wine into your food when you're making it, because it's such a nice wine. But I would do that. Just put a little bit and it pairs perfectly with it. But you can also do it with, somebody mentioned cherry. Some of those fruits, especially if you have it as sort of like a chutney or like a jam, can go really well with cheeses. But, you know, this is a really interesting vineyard because of how we've gone forward with farming it organically, and how that has changed the vineyard and changed the site and changed our farming practices. So maybe Pete, what do you think about when you're thinking about the change this vineyard's gone through? Oh, Pete, you're on mute.
Yeah, it's great to see, you know, what's going to, you know, come out of these vines. So we, as you said, we walk past them every day. We see how they develop. It really is a lot of fun. There's nothing more personal than a vineyard that you get to, you know, go with every day. We take a lot of pride in the Vittorio's Vineyard wines because, you know, it being, you know, right there at the winery, that's the first reflection of our winemaking style, you know, in the world.
How about you,
I think the benefits of organic farming were described in the video, but the biggest one that I see as a wine grower and the impact on the vineyard, the vines, and the wine, the soil is just so much more alive, and we've got so much more weight of microbes and mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae are a root microbe that helps with absorption of all kinds of nutrients, and so the vines really benefit from not being dosed with chemicals and encouraging more of a natural process in the soil. And so this is something that we are now extending to all of our vineyards. We've learned a lot over 10 years, and now we're going to take the next giant step and grow all of our grapes organically.
Yeah, it's something that we're very proud of. Well, any last thoughts before we go on to the next wine? Okay.
I think Audrey's pairing sounded excellent. I'm getting really hungry.
Yeah.
I saw that there was one question in the chat about how long these wines can age. This one and for the next set, I think these wines can age beautifully for, you know, 15, 20 plus years. Personally, I just love these wines, these cabs between, like say 6 to 10, somewhere in that range. I think they're peaking, but they just have so much life to give. And these will cellar very well in all of your cellars.
Well,
Let's move on to our Preston Vineyard Cabernet. The next glass we have here, second wine on flight 2. This is a wine that really can be considered one of the flagship wines of Sattui, with the first vintage of wine made at Sattui in 1975. Starting in 1976, Preston Vineyard Cabernet was coming into the winery. So the entire, almost the entire history of Sattui is intertwined with Preston Vineyard. And going back, you know, that many years, it's some of the older older vines of Cabernet that we work with. Certainly the vineyard has gone through some redeveloping and some replanting over the years. And, you know, that has changed, you know, yields dramatically, certain flavors kind of come and go. But what's remained consistent, just like Sattui, is that the quality coming out of that vineyard is always there. You can always count on Preston. It's one of the wines that all of our long-term wine club members, they just love this wine. And we hope you guys enjoy this, the 2024 edition. Tom mentioned the handshake agreements that, you know, were back in the day in Napa Valley. I think we probably went, this was a little bit before my time, but probably went about 5 years with Preston before anything was ever written down as far as a contract. And that relationship is really critical to the success of Visa Tui, having this relationship with these growers, these landowners that will work with us. They'll I think Jason, you mentioned earlier, they're already doing what we want them to do before we tell them to do it. And it's kind of just it's an extension of Visa Tui to have growers that work with us like this. With Preston Vineyard, it tends to be a bit slower ripening. And that really defines the particular characteristic of the Cabernet. A lot of years, it's our very last Cabernet picked. In some years, it's our very last red grape that was harvested. That was true in 2024. We do pick different blocks out of the vineyard for different reasons, earlier and later. But generally speaking, the Preston is one of the last ones that we harvest. So that really long hang time allows it to develop complex flavors. It naturally tends to have a higher acidity, which is, and we've proven with going back so many years, it really does age well. This is we have lots of evidence to show us that. And I think that naturally lower pH, the higher acidity that we get in those vines, really speaks to, why that is the case. So I'd like to ask our other winemakers here, what do you think, Brooks, what do you think is, so unique about Preston Vineyard, especially the 2024?
Oh, it's near the Napa River, so that means deeper soils. The roots penetrate as deep as 20, 25 feet, even deeper. So they're really mining the soil for all those nutrients and putting that into the flavor of the grapes. And so why would I invest in Preston? It's one of our most consistent red wines that we make. And it's got the history, the pedigree, the Rutherford appellation. So it's got so much going for it, and it's been a real crowd pleaser. But other than that, it's still a bit of a mystery to me why it tastes so good.
Gotta have a little mystery in your life.
Yeah, it's probably the soil. Yeah, soil is such a important aspect, especially in Rutherford. Anything to add, Jason?
Oh yeah, I mean this is Rutherford, so you have that alluvial fan of well-drained rock spreading across this bench, where you have pretty good control over the vine vigor based on how much you do water it or don't water it. Again, this is a historical vineyard that goes way back with Visa Tui, and this often gets amazing awards. And by tasting this right now, I think this is going to be right in line with all of those other vintages that we've had from this vineyard. So I would definitely put a happy face on this one on my list right now.
Yeah, just lastly here, if I could wrap it up, I know there's an arm wrestle with many of our fans, which Cabernet is their favorite, and of course Preston, because it dates back so long, is a favorite of so many. But it's just flat out delicious. And I know, as we do our tastings and we have these really precise descriptors and black currants and pencil lead and whatever else we're talking about, at some point a wine just tastes delicious and it's seamless. And this is what Preston delivers. And whether, I think the soil has to play a big part. It's just, because we've replanted it, we've had different clones, different rootstocks. It's not that it's been consistent, but the soil hasn't changed. And it's just one of those magical places within the Napa Valley. So, I agree with you, Jason. I'd put not a check mark, but I would be putting numbers on the order form on this wine. It's crazy good right now. So,
all right, Tom, I think we got to keep moving on here. I'd like to bring us to the next wine here. And I feel like we need like a bell or something when we move to the next wine so everyone knows, okay, move to the next wine. If you guys think that's a good idea, let's put that in the chat box, and we'll find a good way to have a little chime that we're moving on. But we are moving on to the 2024 Mount Veeder Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a really, I mean, a lot of people always ask, what's your favorite wine? I always say it's the wine in front of me. And currently, the wine that's in front of me is my favorite for sure. Just look at this. I mean, the color coming out of this. You can't even see your hand behind the glass. It is so incredibly inky dark. It just goes to show you the quality of the grapes that go into this this wine right here. And then if you give it a smell, it's just the intensity of the aroma. You don't even need to put your nose in the glass. You can already smell it when it's like you pour this, or you're farther away from it. You can still just get the intensity of it. But what you're smelling is this black currant, blackberry, almost like a vanilla toasted oak. And something that I always like in the Mount Veeder, which I actually get in this one, is it's just like this little hint of like a violet, almost like a perfumey aroma of perfume or violet. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And then by taste, you really get that full body, you get that rich, plush texture. You can tell that there's a lot of tannins to this, but they're not overpowering. They're just so supple and ripe. It just completes this wine for sure. And so I think this is definitely one of my favorite wines. And to kind of show you guys a little bit about where this wine came from, I think we've prepared a little video for you to take a look at kind of the terroir and what it takes to be able to create a wine like this.
Well, here we are. It's a very exciting day. This is early October. We're just beginning harvest of Cabernet Sauvignon here at Mount Veeder. This is our Hibbard Ranch, and what a magnificent place. We have about 525 acres here on the ranch, and this is a very unique appellation. It's probably the most rugged of all the appellations here in the Napa Valley. It's so steep, so rugged, and the wines are just magnificent. Well, you can see here I have a bottle of our Mount Veeder Cabernet. And Brooks, as a winemaker, as we sip this wine and smell this wine, how do you connect it to this place? You know, what's the connection here?
If you look around here, we see bay trees, we see sage plants, we see aromatic herbs, and those all will play a role in the aromatics of the wine. As you can see, the density, the color is just absolutely fabulous, inky black. And that's a function of the long hang time, the cool condition that we have. And so all those things play a role. I could go on, but Tom, tell me what impresses you about this wine?
Well, one, it's black, inky color, and there's so much fruit. There's such a density. And I know there's tannins in this wine, but it just seems like they're just wrapped up in this intense fruit. And it just makes the wine so delicious. Does this cooler climate here play a part in softening those tannins?
Oh, I think it does, absolutely. Many hillside vineyards in warmer climates will have very aggressive tannins. Here we are, we're close to the bay, cool nights. What we have are intense color, intense flavors that envelop those tannins and make them silky and not obtrusive or aggressive.
So the wine, as we've seen from all the years we've been making it, still has a great potential for aging.
Well, the longevity of a bottle of wine comes into play with a number of different components in the wine itself. Of course, the soil, the clone, the rootstock, the location. In this particular wine, location is paramount. It's a wine that is very, very long-lived, even though it's soft right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's magnificent. And what a special evening that Mother Nature has treated us to. It's early October, and here we are. It seems like we're on top of the world here tonight. Literally, we are. We're at over 1,000 feet. We're so proud to be caretakers of this historic property.
This has got to be one of my favorite wines that we make year after year. We make fabulous wines, fabulous Cabernet from Napa Valley, along with everything else. But this, I think, being estate, we have our fingerprint on it from Day one, all the way to harvest, all the way through pressing the grapes and aging and putting it in the bottle. So it's the continuity of that whole process is very special. It's truly a remarkable location. Every time I come up here, I'm blown away.
Yeah. Well, I'm blown away by the wines that you're making. So here's to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That video put it together really well. It shows you where this fruit is coming from. I mean, Hibbert Ranch for us, just we're so lucky to be able to have it in our inventory to be able to make wines like this. I mean, it has those steep hillsides, high elevation. When the fog comes in during the growing season, because we have that elevation, we're well above that fog. It gives us a really great ripening with sun exposure. It's an amazing appellation. Brooks, you spend a good amount of time out in the fields up there, as we saw. Do we have some new information coming out there, or what's going on?
Well, it's a very special location, and I love spending time out there. A 500-acre ranch. You can see all kinds of wildlife, visit different areas of the vineyard. And I started my career down in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And the last 20 years, 30 years now, I've been in Napa Valley. This is one of the sites that really most reminds me of the Santa Cruz Mountains. The climate, the proximity to, in this case, the bay, Santa Cruz, the ocean, and the elevation just all come together to make a very dramatic character and flavor profile. And with the deep, intense color, you have so many more advantages. In fact, I wanted to ask Pete, what is the key for pigmentation and anthocyanins, the pigments in red wine, and how does it interact with the tannins to soften the wine?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the cooler climates are going to promote better color. So, and grapes that are exposed to just really, truly excessive sunlight can ultimately have a negative effect on the color. We really put a lot of effort in the winery to extract our color, our anthocyanin from the grape skins early in the fermentation process. I mentioned cold soaks earlier for the Zinfandels. We do it for the Cabernets as well, but with Cabernet, what we're trying to do is extract that color compounds from the grape skins out into the grape juice before fermentation even gets going. So before there's any heat, before there's any alcohol, and by kind of front loading our grape fermentation with color, it can then chemically bind with tannins as they get extracted. So when you have a grape that's naturally very high in color, like the Mount Veeder fruit, it will bind up with those tannins and produce just this luxurious, rich mouthfeel by the time you drain off the wines. And then we put it into barrels, we complement that with our oak, and we end up with a wonderful final product.
Wonderful. Jason, I know that this is one of your favorite wines as well. We've talked a lot about the flavor profile and Audrey's comments about the aromatics. So we talked about the spice and the bay trees. And what else do you see that's really unique about this particular location and these wines?
Mm-hmm. Well, personally, it's unique to me because I was actually lucky enough to get married on this property. So it actually holds a special place for me. Every time I go out there, it reminds me of the time I spent there with Sasha. But honestly, I'm actually surprised that this is still available. These wines can sell out. We only set aside like 5 to 10% of these wines as futures. And as we reach those case targets, we don't offer anymore. And so I was actually happy to see that it's still available, but I'm going to say it's going to go quick. So I would put in your order soon if you do want to capitalize on the best price for this Mount Veeder cab.
Great wine. Thank you. Well, Brooks, I think I'll give you the honors here on this last wine.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap up the tasting with the 2024 Morisoli Cabernet Sauvignon, Morisoli Vineyard, of course, another Rutherford location. This is closer to Mount St. John on the western side of the valley. So it has a higher percentage of gravel and cobble in the vineyard, a little bit more of a well-drained. And it's farmed by, I think, is it fourth or fifth generation farmers now, I think. And of course, they started with other products like walnuts or prunes probably 100 years ago, but they've been farming this property in grapes for several generations. And the knowledge that Gary Morisoli and his son Chris have about this particular site and how they farm it is really, really important. And we do have a short video. We can take a look at the vineyard and talk to Chris.
Hey, welcome to Morisoli Vineyard. We're here standing in the middle of the vineyard here in Rutherford, just bordered between Niebaum and Manley Lane. My name is Chris Morisoli, fifth generation farmer, along with my dad, Gary. And what's special, I think, about the Morisoli Vineyard is kind of its location and also the history that we have. It's bordered here, like I said, between Niebaum and Manley Lane, up against the foothills of the Mayacamas and the beautiful Mount St. John, which is right behind us. Fourth and fifth generations now farm Morisoli Vineyard, and it was originally started by my great-grandfather, Rocco Morisoli, and his family. He married Lodovina Morisoli in 1893, and then they started farming here on the ranch in 1902 when they had my great-grandfather, Plinio Morisoli, and they lived in that small white house on the property, which was the only thing here on Niebaum Lane, and they really farmed it from 1902 until about 1910. It was originally part of the Doak Ranch, which was a very large swath all the way from Oakville, kind of all the way to Rutherford. So they purchased that part of the land and then continued to farm it really until present day. So from my great-grandfather to my grandfather, Phil, and then my dad, Gary, and now I'm here helping out as well. I don't know, Rodeo Drive, I prefer the Niebaum Lane of Napa Valley, but I have heard that. We do have some great neighbors. I mean, the history here, and especially in the west side of Rutherford, is really cool. We've got, Inglenook, which was here since 1879. You've got the Lopez Ranch, which Scarecrow comes from. You've got Phelps down the road. So we've got a good group of folks as neighbors. And everyone gets along pretty well too, so that's good. Well, everything that we do here at Morisoli Vineyard is done by hand in the vineyard, whether that be from pruning all the way through harvesting. So the dirt here at Morisoli Vineyard, I think, is really special. It's alluvial soils that come down off of the Mayacamas Range. It's a little bit elevated over some of the other areas in Rutherford, and it's well drained. So that soil is light enough to where it allows water to drain quickly from it, and it also allows the vines to get roots down deep so that they can get to more groundwater. And then during the heat of the summer, they're a little bit more drought resistant. They can get to some water, but they also struggle a bit, and that's what helps make those complex flavors that we all love so much in our Cabernets. Audrie Chelichev once said it takes Rutherford dust to grow great Cabernet, and it is really just a metaphor, I think, for the terroir and the land that we have here in Rutherford.
I'd like to jump in and wax poetic about Rutherford, if you guys don't mind. I think it's really amazing. I mean, we have two wines here that are grown in Rutherford, and they taste quite a bit different, but they have a depth and fruit character in a similar vein. And I think that has to do with that Rutherford soil and the farming there. But, I think that when you're tasting wines, a wine really speaks to you. And to me, oftentimes that has to do with, or I find that in a wine or grapes that are grown in Rutherford. And I just really like that dark character. There's so much fruit weight. You taste it, for minutes after you've already finished swallowing it, and it's still developing in your mouth. And to me, that's really interesting. And that's where you really get those conversations between people and what you're tasting, what it's reminding you of. You have all those taste memories. So to me, that's the magic. And that's really why I think a lot of us get into winemaking, is to get that magic. So, yeah, this wine, I get that. It's just like what I would expect from a Rutherford wine.
We've been getting these grapes since 1993 from the Morasoli family. And, in the meantime, many of these other vineyards, Neubaume, Coppola, Inglenook, of course, was founded over 100 years ago. But a lot of these more recent wineries that are growing grapes right next to this vineyard. As Chris said, Scarecrow, for example, Joseph Phelps, Insignia, and these are wines that go for $300, $400, $500, even up to $1,000 a bottle. So this is certainly for the quality that you're getting in the bottle. Buying this wine as a future is a real jewel.
Sure. I'll jump in on the style of the wine we get from these grapes. So this Cabernet, you mentioned all these big players that are right around it. These are some really intense, really powerful flavors that we're getting out of these grapes. Along with that, you get some pretty powerful tannins. The structure of the Morasoli Cabernet is critical. We put a lot of attention goes into that. This is the kind of fermentation that you have to taste multiple times per day because it can turn the corner. We want to get bold, assertive flavors and tannins, but we have to be really careful we don't go over the edge. So it's always a balancing act, and everybody's on high alert when the Morasoli fruit comes in. That we really the expectations are just off the charts for what we're supposed to do with these grapes, and I hope most years we succeed. And I'm definitely proud of the 2024.
Great job, you all. This is an amazing wine. I hope you all liked it, loved it. And please know these wines age for a long time. And here we are drinking this one, only months after the grapes were crushed. And right behind me here in the gold room, we have vintages that are going back, to the 20 to 30 years or more. And so it's pretty special. You can hang on to these, but I think a mark of a great vintage is a good wine that they're delicious out of the get-go. So anyway, yeah, and the fact that this is almost sold out, sells out every year. This is a wine you definitely want to make a little mark by, and hopefully you get some of this. Well, look, I think we made it. We got through all 7 wines. Just thank you to the panel. I learned something every time we do this. But we have one more special guest, so don't leave yet. I'm just going to scoot my chair over, and I think you want to just scoot on in here. Bob, just scoot a little bit more. Bob Kuzo, everyone. So everyone knows Bob from the cellar. Bob, how do people go about ordering these wines if they're interested?
They have a form that they can fill out, and you can scan it and send it to orders@vsattui.com, or you can do it old-fashioned fax. You can contact your sales rep at VSW. Call us. Phone number is on the order form. Pay attention to volume discounts. The more you buy, the more you save. That's the American way. And the good news, there's no tariffs on any of these wines. They're all made right here in America. Discounts apply to any bottled wines if you're purchasing them all together. All cases, 20% off. If you buy 3 or 4, it's 22% off. 5 or more, 25% off. This is when you want to buy them. And it's good to see all of you, or at least be seen by all of you. Should you order as soon as possible? Yes, because these allocations are very limited. Some of them will sell out right away. Ordering windows 1 week from the airing of the show. Deadline May 2nd. Receive special participant discounting. So please get your orders in. These are fabulous wines, and I want to thank all you winemakers for making my job so easy. Appreciate it.
Well, Bob, thank you for being here. As probably most of you know, he retired. I wouldn't let him retire. Yeah, so I had to make a sweetheart deal with him. So he's here like 3 weeks, a month or so, and works only a few days, but it wouldn't be Visa Tui without Bob Cuso. And we're a big happy family here, and Bob's a big part of it. So thank you for kind of closing things out. Any last thoughts from the panel here at all? Any other recommendations for those that we will be sending you? Those that haven't watched it or want to watch it again, have recorded the show, so we'll send that to you. So if you can't get enough of us and you have insomnia, you want to watch this show again, there's actually a lot of great content. So hope you liked it. So if not, I just want to.
Tom, I could add something. We only tasted 7 of the 28 future wines today. So if you have an opportunity to come by, or if you have some personal favorites that we didn't taste today, they should still be available. And look at the complete list. And as you're making your selections, you might grab some of those as well.
Yeah, thank you, Brooks. Well, thank you to everyone watching and for participating in the program. And thank you again to the panel. You all were great. Someone who wasn't here, but it is a reason that a lot of our estate vineyards that they're so amazing. That's David Behar. He's just a great vineyard manager. He's done so well for us. And she's always in the background, but Ali Patterson, the producer, she's, vice president. She's amazing. She's put so much work into this. And so thank you, Ali, for making this work so seamlessly. And then a big shout out to Russell, does all our videos. Some of these I think you could see on the Today Show. They look so amazing, professional, and great job there. And then also we had a lot of our Italian interns bottled all our little bottles, and so we did something like 1,600 little bottles. And a big shout out to Alan for doing some packaging where I don't think we had any breakage. It looks like we might have had one mistake, but we'll get that sent out to you right away. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we can do this again. Have a great evening, and thanks to everyone.
And come celebrate our 50th anniversary, please. Come see us.
Yeah, come see the new Mercado del Gusto, CC. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.